All right, while Ambassador Sondland was busy testifying, the president's personal attorney and political gadfly, Rudy Giuliani, was busy defending himself from accusations he was the ringleader. It started when the Republican-appointed counsel, Stephen Castor, who was questioning Sondland, suggested Giuliani had his own ulterior motives in Ukraine, independent of the president's. Watch this.
And we walked through all your communications with Rudy Giuliani, and they're not a lot, right?
Correct.
Now, granted, Mr. Giuliani had business interests in Ukraine, correct?
Now I understand he did.
Okay.
I didn't know that at the time.
With Messrs. Parnas and Fruman, correct?
A lot of new names I've learned.
So many names. Who knew being an ambassador would mean taking notes and remembering things? Gosh. Shortly after, Giuliani hit back, tweeting, quote, "Republican lawyer doesn't do his own research and preparation and is instead picking up Democrat lies. Shame. Allow me to inform him. I have no financial interest in Ukraine. None. I would appreciate his apology." Don't hold your breath, Rudy. But he's not the only one who was implicated today. Sondland said Vice President Mike Pence, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, and acting White House Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney, two Mikes and a Mick, were all well aware of the president's push to get Ukraine to announce an investigation into the Bidens. So when are we going to hear from any of these officials? Because that would be interesting. Well, let's meet tonight's party panel finally and talk about it. We've got attorney and Republican strategist Alexandra Wilkes, co-host of The Five on the Fox News channel, the legendary Juan Williams, and comedian and host of the Part of the Problem podcast. Download it today. It is Dave Smith. Welcome, everyone.
Thanks for having us.
So what happened with Sondland? So now he's implicating some people you really like Mike Pence and Mike Pompeo.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that, and this is with a very big caveat, to the extent that the American people can follow along with everything that's happening and can tune into even a snippet of these hearings at the end of a very busy day. I think that, Rudy Giuliani has undoubtedly complicated matters with his involvement in the testimony that's been put out there. That being said, I think, though, that short of this reaching the president in a direct way, in a smoking gun kind of way, this is just not going to be what the Democrats hope for. I mean, impeachment is a political process, and I think that if you're going to go after the president of the United States, you need to have him dead on with no other, complications. And I think that these other characters kind of add some complexity to it that makes it a little bit more difficult to understand.
Was Sondland more problematic for the Republicans than some of the other witnesses who testified in these hearings?
I don't think there's any question because, as you pointed out, he's a Republican. He's not an ordinary Republican. He actually gave like $1 million.
Yes.
And he
God,
said,
I wish I had that kind of money where I could just drop $1 million for inauguration tickets.
Wow, he got more. He got an ambassadorship.
Yeah, that's great.
I don't know what they're going for, but that's pretty
That's
good.
Caroline Kennedy business right there.
Yeah, so I think it was hard. And then, you stop and think about him. This is a guy who you can't categorize as a never Trumper. Mm-hmm. That doesn't make sense because, in fact, Mike Pompeo, the Secretary of State, and President Trump selected him. Then they say, oh, you know what? Nobody's been talking about direct conversations with the president. And guess what? He says, yeah, I talked to the president like 20 times about this issue.
But he couldn't really remember even that. He's like, I guess it was 20. I don't know.
I tell you what I took away from it, and just what you were picking up on, I start to see that there's now some separation on the Republican side and that people may be willing to throw Rudy Giuliani under the bus.
There's no doubt that Rudy has the biggest target on his back after this week. And that was pretty clear from the conservative counselor who was questioning Ambassador Sondland today. So does any of this matter at all?
Oh, like in the bigger picture?
In the bigger picture. Grand scheme.
Yeah, well,
Liberty lover Dave Smith.
All right. The bigger picture, right, is we've never in the history of the country impeached and removed a president. It's unprecedented. And the idea that they're saying we're going to impeach and remove Donald Trump for this unprecedented act when the scandal is that he wanted them to look into Biden. And it's very unclear that he actually ever said, you'll only get the meeting if you look into Biden, or you'll only get the foreign aid if you only look into Biden. At best for the Democrats, this is like a wink and a nod. Mm-hmm. This is kind of what I want you to do. The scandals, big picture, as you said, Obama funded Al-Qaeda in Syria. George W. Bush instituted torture. Bill Clinton starved Iraqi children to death. Ronald Reagan and George H.W. Bush shipped coke into the country to help terrorists
who likes
while
to
they
party?
were fighting a
Who
war on
likes to
drugs.
party?
No, but while they were fighting a war on drugs, I'd be
Well,
fine with it if it was an
a
honest
lot of
business
people
move.
are conflicted.
I'm just saying, to make this the scandal that
I
is the
know.
first one we impeach and remove a president for is absurd.
I mean, yes, if you look at the historical context, it's not nearly as big as the Iran-Contra affair.
Oh, nothing even close to this.
Which made Oliver North a star.
Listen, just Barack Obama, and I'm not saying whataboutism. I'm saying this whatabout was way, way worse than what we're talking about.
Wait a second. Didn't you guys impeach a president for having oral sex in the Oval Office?
Yes, and that was stupid.
And now we would commend
when
them.
Republicans do it, well,
No, he's
I'm not a
libertarian.
Republican.
I'm a libertarian.
I am an
I'm an
anarchist.
unaffiliated voter.
I hate all of them.
Let's just take a step back and think about what the public can absorb.
You are wearing a blue dress. You have the last say here.
oh my goodness. It's not that blue dress.
It's not that blue dress. It's really easy to understand sex in the Oval Office and lying under oath. It is not so easy to understand this complex sort of arrangement where, as Dave mentioned, it's like sort of a wink and a nod. There's a lot of foreign names to remember. I just don't think that this is trickling down into the American psyche in the way that the Democrats hope it will.
The trickle is problematic for Democrats because you have to have a giant boulder to take out a president, and they don't at this point. So in my mind, the president may have been totally inappropriate. He may have overstepped the boundaries, and a lot of people have used words like inappropriate. But it's almost like he's spitballing, like alligators and moats on the border.
The other big problem the Democrats have is this didn't happen.
Yeah, they got the aid.
It's an attempted abuse of power. It's an attempted quid pro quo.
Ukraine didn't do the investigation.
They got the aid and they didn't do the investigation.
And they got the White House meeting.
Yes, it's
the system
very
works.
tough.
So what are we all upset about?
Abuse of power by the president of the United States?
Yes, it was inappropriate.
Oh,
Something
it's,
should happen,
it's beyond inappropriate. I mean, you have a guy here who's trying to use our dollars and our foreign aid to get dirt on his political opponent and invite another country's interference in the 2020 election.
How about a scandal in Ukraine siding with neo-Nazis to have an illegal regime change in 2014?
Oh,
that's Barack Obama. There's a scandal in Ukraine. Why do we care about this more than that?
Because we
Quid
just
pro
had
quo.
interference in 2016, and here we go again.
Well, if investigating a political opponent is interference, then Hillary Clinton and the Dems interfere. What do you mean,
No, you
stop?
can't say
They
oh,
used
stop.
Christopher Steele.
If you don't like this, you can't like
Christopher
that.
Steele? Are you
Christopher
familiar?
Steele is
British
working for
spy.
an American
working for
company.
the FBI.
He's what?
He was working for the FBI.
No, he's working for an American company,
and he was
Fusion
working
GPS.
simultaneously
No,
with the FBI.
FBI got interested because he had information.
The
I don't know how this
FBI has not exactly been transparent. We got to leave it there. I'm sorry, but you will have the first word in the next round, which is going to be Donkey Derby. The panel's going to return to play that very soon. It is game night. Get ready, people. All right, first up, while the whole country is distracted with this impeachment circus, the House of Representatives voted to extend the freaking Patriot Act. So why do so many lawmakers support warrantless spying on you? I will ask one brave congressman who voted against it. Thomas Massey is next.